Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to take the mapping that we did in the last video, and I'm going to show you how I'm parsing that out, creating a new person, and creating a new transaction for this FEC data. So I hope you enjoy, and I will see you soon. All right, so first what I did was I started with a procedure, a top level procedure called FEC Import Candidate. And what this is going to do is I'm going to send it a year. It's going to give me the candidate JSON. It's going to rip it and transform that information. And then we're going to iterate through that, and we're going to create a person, and then we're going to create a transaction for that data. This is basically all it does. It's pretty simple, and this is because we're trying to reuse code, so we're trying to separate everything out the best we can. So if I go ahead and alter the people and the transaction, I'll show you what happens in here. So this single JSON element is going to come in here, and I'll pull information from that element. I'm going to see if I already have it, given the government candidate ID. And if I do not have that people ID, well, normally we've been classifying people as unassigned across the board. And I created a new classification called candidate because I'll have another one called donor. So when we're importing the different donations, we can see who's a candidate and who exists on both, because we'll have the same people defined twice. It's going to be very interesting, a little different than your standard systems, but it's going to look really cool. So if I don't already have a people ID or a people defined given that candidate ID, I basically just create a new person for that candidate record, and it doesn't really matter what the people name is here. So after I create that new record, then I import the people JSON. Now this might be a little overkill because it's just copy and pasted code from our Reddit style item, where in here, I'm taking all of the candidate information from that mapping piece, which is only the candidate ID and the full name. But the difference between the Reddit version and this one is I'm giving it a people ID. I'm saying, hey, this is where we're going to store this information. Instead of the Reddit version, I'm trying to look up a people ID. Here, I can just send it a people ID and say, hey, this is what you're associating it to. Now for here, I can just go ahead and remove this information or get this information real quick just to show you. Like I said, only a full name and a candidate is being sent. So it's a very fast thing, but just in case I add more information like event or numeric or whatever, we have all of that here. So this is, like I said, this is the same thing that we've done for submissions, for comments, and for Redditors. Same exact type of concept, copy pasted code, and that's how we're going to get the people in there and the information next to it. So for a transaction, it's a little different. In the transaction, I'm looking for a text year because I'm assuming that each 2-year file means something. So I'm going to create a transaction given that file year. So I created a new event called file year. And that candidate ID, because it seems that's where the focal point is on this whole, model. Now, I haven't seen anything with committee or committee candidate linkages or the donations, but for right now, I am centered around a file year, which would be 2002, every even year and above, plus the candidate ID. So I might have to do another one for transaction or for committee and for donor, but I'm really not sure. So if this candidate or this event file year and candidate ID combination does not exist, I'm going to go ahead and create a transaction. And I created a transaction type called Federal Election Registration and Candidate because I assume this is going to change to committee and donor as time goes by, or as we get more into the different files. So I just made the transaction name something that was, decently readable, I guess. I'm just combining a lot of information to ensure that we don't run into any unique index issues. I'm adding that transaction. I'm adding the event because this is not a part of the JSON. And then I'm sending it to basically something this import people JSON, where we have all this information, where I just find and replaced PEO people with TRX transaction and people with transaction. So I'm getting the transaction ID incoming with the JSON. And when I do this, you can see that we have a bunch of different transaction items. The address for what the office is, what the mailing address was listed, the candidate, principal committees, political affiliations, the year that it was attached to, plus, again, the full name and the candidate ID, and a couple of other pieces of information. So, like I said, this just does the same thing. Grabs that information and runs through our same kind of loading process. Depending on what it is, will depend on where it goes. So I did run this for, I believe 2002, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And when I open up my people table, you'll see all this Reddit information under the tenant of 2 for our Reddit bot. But then as I get down there, you'll start to see that, a different company has leased data in our system. So we have different candidates now. Looks like house mostly, or however they do these IDs, but that's what it is. And we have a ton of transactions. So 20,000 transactions for 2002, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So what I'm going to do is offline, I'm going to run the rest of these. And I was running these at the same time, and I have a video on load and what's happening in the system that I'll release a bit later. But I wanted to make sure that I can run multiple instances of these things at the same time, and I wasn't running into any collisions as we were doing it, and I was successful. So we got a lot of information in here, and that's how we're going to do it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. And remember, like this video and YouTube will recommend it to other users in our industry, and subscribe to support me. Thank you once again, and I will see you next time.